very pleasant evening to you out there. Many thanks for joining us on another edition of the program National Talk on Equa Television International. My name is Joyce Jakada. We are live on Facebook and YouTube at Equa Television International. Do well to join the conversation. On National Talk tonight, Nigerians have poured into the streets in major cities across the nation to protest against economic hardship, despite the government's push to prevent the protests. The fears and concerns of Nigerian leadership and stakeholders have been confirmed as day one of the planned nationwide hardship protest turned violent in some part of the north, claiming 16 lives in Borno suicide bombing and 6 in Niger State. The protest was characterized by looting and confrontation with security operatives, forcing the government to declare curfew in Borno, Yobe, and Kano. However, in southern part of the country, the protest was largely peaceful. The Inspector General of Police, Olukayode Egbetokun, has placed all police units on red alert following incidences of violence recorded in the ongoing protests. Mr. Egbetokun made the announcement at a media briefing on Thursday in Abuja. He said events in some major cities in the country on day one of the protest showed that the protests had turned to mass uprising and looting. To give perspective on the End Bad Governance protest, I'm being joined by Barrister Panmak Lere, who is a legal practitioner and lecturer with the University of Jos. Good evening and welcome to National Talk.
Thank you so much for having me.
Feels good to have you join us on the show tonight.
Thank you.
The End Bad Governance protest is one that a lot of people have expressed fear, especially the government. We've seen a lot of effort coming from the government trying to avert the protest. We've seen plea by even the presidential spokesperson and presidency saying there's need to shelve this strike, this protest. Some people have come out to say that, there have been intelligent gathering, especially from the DSS and security operative, how that there are some groups that intend to take advantage of this protest so that they can just loot and then cause mayhem. And partly one of the reasons why the government have been insisting and leadership of the country saying no, there's need to shelve this. But while the government are saying no, there's need to shelve this, others are saying we need to protest. I mean, things are hard. We can feel the hardship in the land. I mean, we cannot afford food. Like the prices of commodities are on the high side, and all of these are have been triggered by some of the policies that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu puts to play. Partly is the removal of fuel subsidy amongst forex and other policies, and people are just saying that can we revert to the fuel subsidy regime, because if you are saying you had to remove it so that other sectors of the economy can feel the impact, but we are not seeing it in any way, and Nigerians are saying we are tired. You've been telling us to be patient, and on the part of the government, we are not seeing a semblance of patience. What we are seeing is that a humongous amount of money being spent. You see government officials driving big cars while the masses can barely afford to eat, and that is why the End Bad Governance initiative started on social media, and it gained grounds, and Nigerians have been, and today is day 2 of the protest. But I would like to get your assessment of the whole thing. But before then, I would like us to quickly link up to some videos about how the protesters are actually highlighting their demand, and as well as the governor of Lagos State giving reasons why the protest should not hold. That was a day before the protest. Let's watch.
It's because of what is happening in the country. There's hunger, there's hardship. It's impossible for us to feed again. People are dying of starvation. People can no more send their children to school because they cannot afford the escalating school fees. People are losing their relatives and their friends and their children and their elderly ones to very minor sickness and illnesses because they cannot afford money for medicine and money to pay for Medicare because of the escalating cost of healthcare. And why have we had all of this? Because on May 29, President Tinubu decided to remove fuel subsidy. And from that time, Nigeria has been in this problem. He also increased the electricity tariff and devalued the naira. And alongside that, implemented a number of neoliberal and anti-poor economic policies that have turned all of our life to what it is today, whereby most of us can no more afford to eat 3 times in a day. Our demands are: 1, the reversal of fuel price to pre-May 29, 2023 level, reversal of electricity tariff to pre-May 29, 2023 level, reversal of all anti-poor and neoliberal policies that the government has implemented, better funding of public education. We don't want loans. We want students to be given grants, because loans means that students are going to be trapped in lifelong indebtedness. Yes, we want decent job creation. There are no jobs in this country. Many people, when they graduate 10 years after, they still don't have a job. We want the refineries to be fixed, new ones built, but most importantly, they should be put under democratic workers' control and management. We also want the power sector, that privatization that has failed since the year 2013, to be reversed, and for the power sector to be placed under democratic workers' control and management.
Protest the practical catalyst for progress the nation require at this time. Will such a protest suddenly ensure that all of our challenges disappear in 10 days? Will the protest suddenly ensure that the prices of foodstuff dropped on the 11th day? Will shutting down the economy for 10 days inspire an economic growth we all earnestly desire? I hold a strong view that a protest at this time will do none of these things for us as a nation. Rather, it would roll back the modest gain that we have made in previous facets of our social economic life as a people and as a state.
While those for the protest are saying there's need to actually reverse some of these policies, there's need for the youth to be employed, there's need for security to be ensured, there's need for high cost of commodities to be reduced, there's need for youth to be given grants to go to school rather than giving loan. Now, on the part of the government, Governor Sanwo-Olu of Lagos is saying there's no need. Though a protest is a constitutional right of the citizens, but of what gain will it be shutting down the economy? These are just two perspectives. And just to bring to your notice, there are also those pro-Tinubu governments, like the supporters, coming out to also protest. And I was just wondering, you're coming to protest against protest. I couldn't find sense around all of that. But I mean, it's more like a situation where you can only find in Nigeria. But what's your assessment of the whole protest, the End Bad Governance protest, the hardship that the people have been crying for? I've seen placards indicating we are hungry, we need food, and all of that. What do you make of the protest so far?
Well, to begin with, I'm happy we just had a watch. We just took a look at the entire essence, why this protest is projected. Now, the first thing you would ask yourself as a Nigerian is, are these reasons tenable? Are these realities that we have found ourselves in? And the answer is yes. Are we in a hard economic situation? Yes, we are. Do we find it difficult to sustain ourselves, even in our own households, let alone assisting others who have been dependent on us? Yes, we have. Are students finding it difficult to secure the basic needs they have in schools? Yes, they are. Are parents finding it difficult to sponsor and pay school fees for their children and their wards? Yes, they are. So all these reasons are germane. They are very valid. So if government is unable to make provisions for these, the question is, what then becomes the fate of the citizens? Do we just fold our arms and watch government, we being at the mercy of government? It sounds like someone is being beaten, but is being told not to cry. Or you are being beaten, you want to cry, and you are told how to cry. It just doesn't add up. So for those who are in government, if they come out like the governor of Lagos State, Sanwo-Olu and the likes, if they do come out and speak, the first things we're going to be asking them is simple. What have you done in Lagos State that will cushion the effect of whatever policies government has brought on the table? So if you would want that we shouldn't come out to protest, I mean, in the first place, protest is a constitutional right. The freedom of expression and the freedom of association, so long as it is peaceful. And usually, just like you've mentioned, government also gets to have a site that they sponsor to be the pro-government protesters. So they come to want to hijack, like we do have, or like we did have during the NSAS protest. So government would sponsor some of them. Why am I saying government is sponsoring some? We have the videos. where you see them in hillocks, government hillocks, plate number belonging to government. And then
report has it that for those that were the pro-government protesters, they were like this Tom Abuja in some buses, and
they have done that. That's why I say we have the videos.
Deployed them.
We have these videos, and securities were backing them up. They had security coverage. So if you see somebody in a police van being escorted, and they are dropped in buses, and they go to attack peaceful Nigerian protesters who have genuine reasons to believe that government is not satisfying the basic needs, for God's sakes, what should government do?
But don't you think that there's need to just be patient, like the government say, because it's not like you rightly mentioned earlier on how that should we fold our arms and then keep holding on to be patient, like there are policies, there are things that are being put in place, and that is why the government is saying just give us some more time. We've seen how that NLC have protested organized labor, and at some point they reached agreement. We saw how that the 70,000 minimum wage was signed and all.
Agreed, yes.
There are instances federal government told us how many trucks of rice is being deployed to different states. Like, don't you think that all of these are geared toward cushioning the effect of the removal? And then governments like governors right now, they are getting like triple of allocations that they used to. So isn't this enough to make the people to just and perhaps Tinubu's administration of government is just a year in office, but do you not think that he needs, or the government needs, more time to actualize all of these policies, since it's not like the governments are just folding their arms and just saying, no, don't protest, no, don't do this, like they're actually working on something. Isn't it enough?
Well, beautiful. Now let's be more practical. Now, the first thing he did, 29th of May 2023, when he came into office, he declared the removal of the oil subsidy. Now, let's begin from asking ourselves the question, was there oil subsidy? Yes, there was. And how was it operating? When we're going to have, since we don't have working refineries in Nigeria, those who partake in getting this oil that we have refined and then returned to Nigeria for consumption, they are usually paid partly by government so that it cushions the effect of the costs of the transportation, the movement on the high seas, the refining of the oil, and then it comes back, so that the people don't feel the expenses in that magnitude. Now, the same President Tinubu had argued during his campaigns that there was no such subsidies. Now, he had argued, we still have the videos. He argued and presented at different forums where that and how that there was no subsidy and we were being deceived. But on the first day, assuming office, you declared removal of the subsidy. So who is deceiving who?
But he was not the only person that mentioned removal.
Well, but he is now the president. He is now president. If others have said, we would assume that possibly they didn't have the position he did. When he was contesting, he was sure and told Nigerians that there was no such thing and were being deceived. That government was just simply being corrupt and that the funds of Nigeria are being taken to other countries for personal reasons. Now he came into office and day one, he declared no more subsidy. He has removed it. And what was the reasons that he gave? One, he said he was going to channel those monies being removed into education, into healthcare facilities. Let's begin to ask ourselves, in educational sector, what has he done? When he came into office, part of what, I'm a lecturer in the University of Jos, part of what he wanted to do was to take about 50% of the funds and the fees being paid to universities by students for their study as part of what government was going to use for economy. Now, you begin to ask yourselves, are institutions of learning supposed to be part of income-generating institutions? We have income-generating institutions like the customs. You can generate funds, and government has access to them to use them. Are you aware that even from TET fund, the monies that companies were contributing 1% of their incomes, their profits rather, and then for tertiary institutions to access them, this was the brainchild of the universities. ASU came together when government said there was no funds to fund education, and they came in and stepped in and said, why not bring this policy? It will help in the development. So from TET fund, government is still removing from it to still run economy. So if institutions are not surviving because government doesn't fund them, and the presidency now says we would remove subsidy, so we would channel these funds, they are now buying rice and sharing. You don't take from what you would have invested in developmental projects to give for food. When you invest and there's development, there are job opportunities. It gives us the food that we need. There are seed times, there are harvest times.
So you're saying that the protest is timely.
The protest is very timely.
And of course, we know that is the constitutional right of the citizen. But what is your assessment? We've seen protests in Plateau State, which is relatively peaceful, Adamawa State as well. We've seen in some parts of the south as well, and relatively peaceful. In Lagos, I think we should also commend them, because a lot of people, all eyes were in Lagos, thinking like, because of the NSAS experience, but it was relatively peaceful as well. But coming down to the north, like, there are a lot of violence, like, amidst the protests. We saw in Kano how that vandalization, looting, like, took place. In some part of Sokoto, Dora, like, there was also looting. In fact, in Borno, the same thing. There was suicide bombing, and 16 people lost their life. In Niger State as well. As we speak right now, there's 24 hours curfew in Borno, in Kano, and in Yobe. 3 local governments in Yobe State. Now, what do you make of this? While we're saying that, Nigerians are saying, it's a fundamental right, it is constitutional, and what the government kept saying was that, no, we don't want this. Can you shelve this protest? Because there's intelligence that this thing is likely to be hijacked by hoodlums. And with all that we have seen, like, taking place, do you think the objective of this protest is achieved?
Well, if I'm to rate this protest as it is at the moment, this is day 2, I'll rate it for 70%. And I'll give my reasons. Now, we have 36 states and the FCT. So, roughly, let's say 37. In states where these protests were conducted and peacefully, there are about 10, 11. No sign of any unrest, no sign of any violence anywhere recorded. And of course, Plateau stood out. And Plateau is still standing out. Now, if you follow, even in those states where some traces of violence were found, in day 2, they had calmed. There was large calmness across board, except for, of course, areas where there were already curfew, 24 hours curfew and all of that. Now, if you take a look at the general spectrum of these protests, you discover that day 2 became much more peaceful.
Like Bauchi, Gombe.
Exactly. They became much more peaceful. And since it's for 10 days, even day 2, we have been able to stabilize that the violence and the breaking and the vandalization of properties have reduced. Then there is prospects that in the days coming, we are going to achieve much more peaceful protest. But come to look at it, in the first day of the mayhem, that was yesterday, what was government participation in it? In the FCT minister proceeded and approached the Federal High Court in the FCT and secured a court order on the 31st day of July. And the protest was meant to be in the next day.
I was going to ask you,
yes,
as
we
a
are coming to
professional in that field or in this subject,
so
what do you make of the conjunction coming?
That is where I'm taking you
less than 24 hours.
So that you begin to see that government, by its showing, was not even interested in whatever the people were going to be doing. If it was true there was intelligence gathering, was it less than 24 hours they gathered it? This protest had been announced for over a month. And people were gathering strength on the social medias. You see people mobilizing themselves, even though some young people were giving different reasons why they believed this protest. But it was all geared towards the same achievement. It was towards the end of bad governance. So you discover that even government, by its showing, was not interested in addressing the issues. Till we speak, we have not heard what the presidency is saying about it. They just brought security and gagged the entire frontage of the presidential villa. Who is interested in even entering the presidential villa? We're not going there to make protests by ourselves.
But there were attempts in Kaduna.
There has been attempts to government houses.
In Bauchi too, yes.
But largely, in these government houses, the people were simply asking the governor to come and address them. And they were not attended to. And then we have canisters shot everywhere. And then people were scattered. And whenever you disperse a peaceful convergence, a peaceful gathering, a peaceful protest, that is what you are calling for. Anarchy and crisis. There will be stampede. People would be panicking, and those who are onlookers would wonder what is happening because they see people coming in their crowds, and whatever people would want to assume, you will begin to have them. So their fears now become real. So in large extent, I would see and I say that this protest is succeeding, unlike we did have during the NSAS protest.
But do you think the concerns of the government is actually valid? Because the fear of the protest being hijacked, a possibility of looting, the NCC, for instance, NCC Park in Kano was looted, and other private and government entities, it was looted as well. So would you say that the concern of the government and some stakeholders are actually valid? Because beyond government, we've seen religious leaders, we've seen some stakeholders making statements saying that their people should desist from these protests. We should just give the government time. They are talking with the government, and the government kept emphasizing that we know is your constitutional right, but why we're saying shelve these protests is because of the danger ahead. And as we speak right now, over 20 people have lost their lives just after day 22, just after day 1. So would you say that the reasons that the government have given, like as regards shelving this strike, is valid?
Now, let me take you from this perspective. Their fears are valid. Their reasons are valid. Every father who has children who are hungry and they are crying and they are beginning to throw tantrums would ask for patience, would ask for calm. Now, if the father goes ahead to show from some of the videos we have seen, like we have mentioned just shortly, and then he hires some other people to come and either beat up his children for crying, or for throwing tantrums for what they believe is a worry, is a pain, I think the father has caused it upon himself. There was no set of people who planned. I know we've seen videos where people are saying we'll burn down terminals, we'll destroy this place, we'll go to police stations, we'll go to hospitals, even bakeries. We have seen such videos. Is that okay? Now, but beyond it, if government has sponsored some other people to want to hijack, and how are we sure that some of these videos that have been going out are not actually sponsored also by the governments? Look at the way Plateau Governor, for instance, Honorable Caleb Mutfong. Look at how he approached the whole thing. We were called, I'm the chairman of Youth Can in Plateau State. We were invited for several security meetings by the Commissioner of Police. And they asked if we are also protesting. And we said, well, yes, there is a protest. But under the platforms of our organizations, we're not organizing that protest. We have one single platform as Nigerians. It doesn't take a religious coloration. It doesn't take an ethnic coloration. It's not regional coloration. It is generally on the platform of being Nigerians. So we are agitating for good governance. And we are crying against bad governance. So that it doesn't now look as if, okay, you want your weekend to announce we are protesting under the platform of your weekend. And then the ethnic nationalities are announcing under their platform. No, we are now segmentalizing that entire. We want to go together as Nigerians under one single entity. Now, so while their fears are valid, they haven't shown us that they have a clean hand.
So how do you mean? How do they show you that they have, apart from the address and telling you that, oh, this is what we have on the table? Like how do they show you that their hands are clean?
Now, the military said they are watching. The Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, had addressed, he held a press conference. I don't know if Nigeria has become a military zone. The civilians are there. You have a president. He's the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. You don't talk. The president will tell you if the unrest continues, if the civil, crisis continues, we would find a way of inviting military to come and assist the police. That would have been better. But it's like we now have 2 chief commanders of the armed forces in Nigeria. The Chief of Defense Staff is addressing the nation and telling them if this continues, we would intervene. And then the president is quiet about it. So did he lend his powers to the Chief of Defense Staff? So if government by that picture alone is playing the cards, what then are we going to be seeing? Then Abuja got an order of the Federal High Court and said, restrain yourself to Moshood Abiola Stadium. In the same stadium, the pro-government protesters were allowed to access them. They knew they were coming to want to hijack the protest. They wanted to instigate the protesters towards violence. And they were being secured by security men also. So what are we saying? You have asked that they should be convened in one same place. You have now allowed others to come and intrude. Like, government has not shown to us. If government has acted in the manner that the Plateau State Governor did, I can guarantee you that we would have every justification to know who would have caused the crisis. Of course, the looting and the vandalization of government properties cannot be excused. These are criminal acts by elements that would ordinarily want to take advantage of it. I just on a lighter note, I saw a placard a young lady holding, and she said it's because of bad governance that she was able to.
I was thinking, is it Tinubu that is the cause of that?
She was not able to get a husband, to get married at this particular age, and I laughed at it. But of course, everybody it's like going to an institution and having students protest. When you begin to hear the chants of "we no go agree," you have to find out first if they even understand the reason why they are not agreeing. Because some is because of the carryover they have had in your course, they are not green. Some is because of the gari that they poured for them yesterday that they are not green. Some is because of the absence of light. But in any event, I can guarantee you that it is a better protest and it is much more organized now than we have had before. And if government is not careful, we are going to be having consistency in these protests. And when people become so conversant with protesting and coordinating themselves. You can see the protests in Plateau. I would always refer to that because Plateau stood out. They have addressed the likes of Prophet El Buba, addressed the crowd and told them, we will see who would want to come and hijack. So the protesters on the Plateau were on red alert against those who would want to hijack. And they said, we'll arrest them and hand them over to securities.
Okay, but if you said that this protest is 70% successful,
yes,
do you see the need to continue? Like, if the protesters have made their statements and 70% successful, is there a need to continue, knowing well that hoodlums and even ignorant protesters are just taking advantage of the whole thing, either by hijacking or by looting? Like, look at the case of Kanu that I kept making reference to. Like, what has street light got to do with ending bad governance? I was asking myself question, how can people who loot advise the president? Like, you are protesting against bad governance, and then the attitude you are showing out there, like trying to bring down street light, going into an ICT center that is meant to help the young people, educate, enlighten them, and then help them to like meet up with global standard, like going in there. Like, I saw a picture of someone with keyboard, and he's saying that is, yes, that was his own, like, that's something that he got out of it. So I'm just wondering, can somebody or can people with such attitude like be able to change bad governance? Like, how possible it is? And if the protesters, like the peaceful protesters, have achieved or attained 70% success, is there need to go ahead with the protest?
Now, beautiful. My rating of 70% success is that the young people understood why they are going out. Of course, when you throw anything to the larger crowd, you will surely, like I have told you, when you get to hear "we no go agree," it's a chant that tells a lot of stories. But in the larger majority, you will discover that the young people we know what we are crying out for. The entire nation is crying at the same thing. If you watch the videos, if you hear radio and audio records, you would get to discover that people actually have a pain that is valid. Now, all these twists, there would always be some criminal elements who would want to take advantage of those opportunities. We have had the secondary school in Plateau that got demolished, right, recently, because it actually crumbled and then destroyed the lives and properties of young people and their teachers. Now, in the midst of that, while others are trying to rescue, you will not miss out that some were stealing phones and picking pockets. You always get to have them, even in the heat of that misery that people found themselves in. So you always get to have, you can't excuse that those things can happen. There are possibilities in every protest that somebody somewhere may want to take undue advantage of it. Do not forget that even without the protest, we have criminals. We have hijackers. We have carjackers. We have armed robbers. We have kidnappers. We've had them. So when that crowd goes out for protest, it's possible they can also be amongst them.
And that's why I'm saying that since we are aware of the possibility of these people hijacking, should we continue? Since the government are even saying we are ready to dialogue, let's talk. Should we continue on that
for how long will the government continue to say be patient and be patient? The people didn't come out to go and loot. Some people would want to follow that. That is why the security operatives were notified.
So who should be responsible for that?
The security operatives should have given the backup for these protesters and ensure it was peaceful. And they would be able to handpick those who are trying to cause harm. If somebody is protesting in your presence, I mean, you have children in the house, you have created a forum where they would be allowed to express themselves. You are on the watch. If the securities are all there, they will now know who is planning to go out of where we have kept them to be. Do not forget that the protesters were not fighting against themselves. It was government agency against the protesters in large majority. And then the protesters now, in going back and running back, began to do some of these mayhem. So largely, these people did not set out to go to want to destroy government properties. Some felt they were provoked. For whatever justifications they had, they felt provoked because of what had happened. I can tell you that on the plateau, in the last administration, when we had the former administration in power, we protested against some of the things that were going on, the killings that were going on, and government was silent about them. No visits to the places where those attacks had taken place. And we marched to the government house. We were all peaceful. We coordinated it. Under several forums, we put ourselves together as the leaders, and we went. And Youth Can was part of it. I was part of the leaders in the front ranks. When we went to the government house, we demanded the government should address us on why these attacks are not being addressed and why these victims are not being attended to.
Which is still part of the demand.
Which is still part of the demand, of course. And before we knew it, military came in, police came in and started shooting in the air. And a bit lower, not directly in the air, a bit lower because we had some of the shells that were dropping amongst the protesters. And then a helicopter came and was dropping hot water on protesters. We were very peaceful and coordinated. Before we knew it, we now saw a press statement from the government house that we came and destroyed government house and we carted away the chairs. There will always be that kind of instigation. And people said, if we knew you would do this, some young people said, if we knew you would come up with this, we would have destroyed it indeed so that we would be suffering for what we did.
But what do you make of the incidents in Kaduna State where, as we speak right now, I think about 25 people have been arrested?
That's right.
Yeah, there's also the IGP made a statement talking about how that some of the officers were killed. And in Kaduna State, I'm aware that one was shot, one of the officers, because now peaceful protest or protest as outlined in the Constitution, I don't think is one that you see protesters with small arms. Like at most you see them with placards. So these shots, some of the people that were arrested were made to understand that they were carrying machetes, some with knives, some with certain weapons and all of that. So why go protest with small arms? Don't you think that the intention is not what you were highlighting earlier? Because if the intention is peaceful protest, going out to just air your grievances about bad governance, about against the hardship that the people are faced with, why carry machete? And then the gunshots, the police that was shot, where was it coming from? I think one of the protesters was found with AK-47.
Yes,
why that?
Beautiful. Now, you see, whenever you do know that your people are agitating for a just cause, the first thing to do is to get ways of alleviating their fears. Address all that people were asking for. President, these are our pains. In case you have not heard about it, these are our pains. By so day, we are going to take to the streets. The government should simply address the people. We are aware we have heard of all you have said. You see, it is when a child cries beyond limit that he begins to throw tantrums in the house. He gives you all the signs. We are not justifying, and nobody can justify all these unrests, all these, looting and vandalization. Nobody can justify any of those things, whether within the confines of a peaceful protest or not. Nobody can. If you must be in possession of any weapon, you must be licensed. We all do know that. But like I've said, once the people come out from their, from their comfort zones because they feel they have been pushed to the wall, we react to our pains differently. Some cry, some sob, some scream, some roll on the ground, some go to bed, some cry and pray. We treat our pains differently. Now, if government knew, which of course they did, the only question is, why didn't they respond to these things in time? You want to go to court to stop people from protesting? You want to go to court, so you have the power to think of that, and you didn't think of just simply addressing people and their fears? They have told you that you have removed subsidy. We have not seen what you've done with the money you are sharing rice. Who does rice help? How much is even the rice you are sharing? Who gets to see it? We have seen videos where even the rice that they had given to different states to go and share, some were rebagged into the different politicians under whose constituencies those rice are
said they're yet to receive, like
some
the
are yet to receive.
Of Gombe State.
Exactly. Some are yet to receive, and some of them with the bags printed with the presidency are being sold in the markets. So when they get into the hands of the government, how do they get out? Who benefits from them? So if your concern is the masses, those in government don't care much. They may be concerned, like
but we've seen them reiterating how that they know the pains, the hardship that Nigerians
forget about knowing.
Are going
what have you done about the pains that you do know? I can give you reasons because I'm in Plateau and we are lucky. I think our governor has received one of the awards internationally because he's been recognized as one of the governments, in fact, one of the best governors that we have had in Nigeria. And then come to West Africa. He has received an international award in just barely 6 months. The same 1 year we are talking about for the presidency is the same 1 year that others are receiving awards of doing well for their people. What is the basic duty of government? To provide and make life easier for the people. Now you've made it worse. How much was petrol per liter? How much is it now? 830 something naira. How much is the naira to the dollar? Now, you said part of your economic policy, you are floating the naira, meaning you are allowing market forces to determine how much the naira would be. Now, a lot of international companies have shut down. How much is antibiotics now in Nigeria? So, cost of living has become... How much is Gari? The poor man's daily companion that you can... I went to buy German stone, what we call kulikuli. They are now counting, I think, 4 in a leather for 400 naira. 4 wasn't up to 50 kobo before. But now, 400 naira. And you start asking, is this medicine? Or is it just something I will just eat together with Gari? Gari is now no man's business.
But don't you think that for development to take place, of course, some of these...
We have price to pay.
Yeah.
They will always be, like I said, there is seed time.
So don't you think this is part of the price to pay?
This should not be the price to pay. Now you have removed subsidy to plunge these monies into economy, into healthcare, we have not seen them yet.
Are you not also concerned that the economy has been what some people say refer to Tinubu meeting almost nothing in place and then starting all over again? Don't you think that these are some of the prices that we have to pay?
Now, if Tinubu is not meeting anything in place, that would be a lie. Because Nigeria
These are what his aides have consistently said.
And that is why we don't want him to allow others to speak on his behalf. And I am calling on the presidency to know that we have only one commander-in-chief of the armed forces. So the likes of the chief of defense staff should take the backbench and not be hard. They may be seen when the need arises. They should go to the bushes and defend the territorial integrity of Nigeria. Not to come and threaten civilians who are agitating for lawful entitlements.
Okay,
and they are being
speak to us on the capacity of the security. The IGP have actually come out to make statement, address press, and talking about how that his men are now on red alerts. And then when you see them with red beret or some ban on their hands, you should know that this indicates that it's red zone. Yes. And so for some people, they describe that as threat, while some people are saying, we're not even worried about that. Come and do your worst. But what do you make of the response coming from the security agency as well as their capacity to nab all of this situation? Because, in fact, I saw one of the video where the looters were looting even from the truck of the army. And there are instances where we had their truck, their cars being burnt down and police station also attacked. So what do you make of their capacity and then the response that is actually coming out from them? Before the protest, there were a lot of press release, press address, in fact, saying how that protesters will take responsibility for this and that. And some people are saying, where in the Constitution does this say that you should come and take permission and apart from notifying, come and sign that you're taking responsibility for this and that? So there were a lot of questions. So what do you make of the body language generally? Like we can see red band on their hands already, but what do you make
either
of
their guns, on their heads, on their hands or wrists?
Sure. So what do you make of their Yeah.
Well, first of all, the role of the security operatives is basically to provide security. Now, in providing security, you have different levels and stages of engagements. Where it is peaceful, you sustain. Where there is tension, you are sure of your presence and you calm. So even from your utterances, you give people reasons to believe you are for them or you are against them. Why would you be on red alert? Simply because I told you I want to go and protest. You should be with me because police should be my friend. You are not here to suspect me, but you're here to provide me security against anybody who would want to take away my rights, including the government. Of course, you are paid from my government funds, taxpayers' funds. So you should give us much more reason to feel safe. So if we are agitating that government is making us feel unsafe, we are being attacked, we are not secured, you should, as security agencies, provide us the succor that we need. Now we have notified you that we are going out on protest. That's Nigerians have notified the security agencies. No security agency would say he wasn't aware or it wasn't aware that Nigerians were going on a protest. Now, the way and manner the Commissioner of Police on the plateau approached this whole thing, it was beautiful. Like I've told you, we have been invited severally to sit on the table, round table, different groups, and youth groups and all, and we discussed. They engaged stakeholders. If you must, we appeal to you, be peaceful. And they provided security. And they came out and they escorted the protesters as they went out on the streets. That way, you would give people reasons to believe that even those who are coming to hijack the protest are going to be, picked up. So if you have assured me that my protest is simply going to be peaceful, I would have opportunity to air my views without breaking anyone's property, without destroying anyone's rights also, then I have every reason to be more peaceful. I do not know how the security agencies in those other places acted in the manner they did.
So you're saying like in places like Abuja where we had even tear gas on the protesters, it is as a result of the reactions coming from the security agency.
It may not entirely be because of the reaction. Like I've told you, there are still criminal elements in the midst of this crowd. It's a mixed crowd.
But you see, the protesters, I think partly is that they flaunted the court order. Like, and you are a teacher in the subject.
Yeah,
I don't know if you're worried about that. Like, there was a court order and then the protesters tried to flaunt it, or they actually flaunted that. So are you worried about that action on the part of the protesters?
I had the opportunity of going through the process that was filed, and I saw the fears. In fact, if you followed the ruling of the Federal High Court, the judge did say that the reasons advanced for the anticipated fear from the FCT minister is germane. But you know that the laws usually do not operate on what we call suspicion or imaginations. These were conjectures. They had fears, but there was nothing to show, because as at the time this process was filed in court, there was no sign. In the document, there were no evidence to show that there was going to be violence. They simply said, given the history, we have had cases where there were violence. Now, in the first place, can you actually circumscribe a constitutional right? If I have a right of movement, and you say we should all only remain within the stadium, how many of us can be contained in the stadium? What is the capacity of the stadium? And then who provides mobility for people who are afar off from the stadium to access the venue you have assigned them to be? And if you have done that, are you not violating my right of freedom of movement? Can we not actually choose where to meet under our right of freedom of association? So if we do have these constitutional rights, fundamental human rights, then why would a court attempt? I'm not saying it is good to violate the court order, but when you make an order that you know is physically not feasible, and that it is not tenable to have people obey them, then you are the one now creating cause for disobedience.
I heard the likes of DG who have volunteered to be lawyers for the protesters, saying that, I mean, they are not out to play football match.
Over 1,200 people arrested.
Yes.
And of course, in the mob action, those who are innocent may also get entrapped. because it's an arrest of a multitude of crowds. So if you see people, there's mayhem on this side, and you want to go to do an arrest, it's possible you would also get to arrest somebody who is innocent.
Okay.
And because you are arresting them in the midst of those who are also doing the act, you would tag all of them as criminals.
All right, talking about the root causes of all of these things, because definitely there's something that led to something, and then where we are today. A lot of people have pointed fingers at politics of region, while some are saying during President Muhammadu Buhari, the immediate past president of Nigeria, there was a lot of issues about nepotism, politics of region, and all of that, major positions being given to the north. And then when President Bola Ahmed Tinubu came in, like, they are saying the same thing, and no wonder the reaction coming, especially from the north. Some people have accused the president of politics of region, saying he brought all his cabals from Lagos and then gave them major position. And because some people are feeling, oh, there's actually inequality, we cannot stand this injustice, like there's no fairness in this administration, and that is why they are asking that let there be equality. Some are saying no to this bad governance. So some people are faulting the politics of region. And do you think that is what, like, this is a contributory factor? And do you see his cabinet like missing out with the reality, like missing out on touch with reality? Because each time you see his aides or his appointees, that's the president, coming out to talk, they will say, we are aware, we feel the pain, and the president is on it. Like, do you think they actually feel it, or they are actually missing out on reality? A lot of people have said that, oh, the president needs to come out to address. Do you also see he's addressing poverty, addressing unemployment, addressing all the agitations or the requests or the demands that the protesters, like, what difference will it make? I've heard a lot of people say he should come out and address, Do you see him coming out to talk, ending all of these demands?
Beautiful. Now, before I venture into specifics, in the last administration, when we had the Right Honorable Nuhu Ayuba Abok as the Speaker of the Plateau State House of Assembly, now there was a protest in the midst of the Anwalzangam killings and the Miangu killings and all, that corpses from Plateau State Hospital were conveyed in a vehicle, in a pickup van, to the House of Assembly. The Speaker of the House waited, welcomed the protesters in the midst of tears and cries, and addressed them. There was no violence, there was no insult. In fact, he wept in the midst of the tears. He is human. Did he give anybody money? No. Did he bring any policy to give jobs? No. Did he do anything to revive anyone who has died? No. Has he given any command or instructions against those who had killed these ones? No, he hasn't. But he has shown empathy. If anyone is feeling pains, you don't add pain to pain. Now, I'm giving you this example to see that the address that the presidency would do would have gone a long way to assuage the feelings, the hard feelings of a lot of Nigerians. Now, when the same protest was staged right down to the government house, the people were resisted. And it almost turned violent. The same crowd that came to the House of Assembly and it was peaceful and they left, when they went to the government house, it almost became violent. They had to abandon the corpses there and told the security agencies, we are leaving this number of corpses. Whenever we want to bury them, we'll demand for them. And you would have to provide the caskets, and all of that for their bed. And that was exactly what happened. It almost became violent because, again, they were resisted. So when you get to have people who are telling you, people have different ways of expressing their pains. Now, you are so lucky if you have the type that will tell you their pains. You are lucky. Take advantage of it. Even if you would not provide the job, let them know what you are doing about it. Now, come to think about all that we have talked about, how government has been responding to these issues. The APC spokesperson, the publicity secretary, national publicity secretary, somebody, Felix, he came out addressing, talking about these whole issues in channels, and said that the presidency is not owing any Nigerian an apology for the hardship they are going through.
Talking about response, I would like us to quickly listen to the Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives, where he was calling on the Igbos to actually stay clear of this protest. And if there's any time they should sit at home, is now. So let's hear him and then talk about the proactive measures that government need to take.
Igbos, stay away. Igbos, stay in your houses. You'll be used as an scapegoat. They will target you and they will waste you. Igbos, we have died enough. Our blood has filled the street enough. Allow those who feel they can do it, let them go and do it. We'll be strong enough. For this protest, let us be weak now. Let those ones who are strong, let them stand on the streets. Igbos, be weak now to sit at home. If there's any sit at home that will be effective, not the one you have done on Mondays, let it be the one that will happen at this protest. As one of the leaders of this country, as one of the leaders from the southeastern region, that you love and you have confidence in, I am telling you, if you have never shown weakness before, let it be shown now. Igbos, we have shown strength in civil war. We have shown strength in agitation. We have shown strength in fighting for IPOB and MASOB and all the rest of them. In sitting at home, please be weak now. Because they were looking for opportunity to slaughter you. Sit at home.
This is the Deputy Speaker of House of Representatives, Kalu, saying Igbo should sit. I would just like you vis-a-vis the comment from the Publicity Secretary of the APC. Respond to that. What's your reaction to this?
Well, you see, for it's just pathetic that we have people who would, I call it power misruled, with all sense of responsibility and humility. There are people who speak and you wonder, how did they come about getting into positions of power? Now, is this agitation an Igbo agitation? Is it a regional agitation? Are there no Igbos in the north? If he does feel that Igbos are majorly in the southeast, what happens to his Igbo brothers in the southwest, northwest, northeast, and the likes? What happens to them? They should also sit in the midst of the clamor that people are agitating for the same thing nationwide. If this was only happening in the north, and they wanted to do what we call a solidarity, then he can ask them, be weak, be calm. But this is something we all are going through. And we also have northerners in the south.
So what proactive measures now should government take to like stop this from snowballing? Because we've seen semblance of violence and like people are also worried about this escalating. So what measures can the government put? And then as well, the citizens who tomorrow will also be going out, the protesters, the hungry protesters, like tomorrow is going to be day 3 and they're going to be out. Like what proactive measures should the government take and what's your advice for the protesters?
First, to the government. The government should tell the security agencies to be more civil in their engagements. The crowd of people who sleep on the highways are few. It is in the daytime that the others would come and congregate at the usual central place. Day 1, there were movements randomly. Today, they are more civil, like I have analyzed. Most of the areas and states where there were civil unrests, protesters were a bit showing some signs of violence. They are more calm today. So by the days going, we expect that there will be more calmness. So if there are possibilities and tendencies of more calm than the violence they would have anticipated, then I don't think government should be more confrontational. So security agencies should be more civil in their approach. There should be no threats, there should be no pushing, and they should be calm. After all, they are doing their jobs. They are being paid for it. Whether they stay in the barracks or they come out, or they stay in their offices or they come out, they are doing their jobs. Allow these people to vent their angers. If a child cries, even if he's hungry, he can cry and sleep. All you need to do is not threaten, not beat him up. So if you are a parent who see your child cry because he's hungry and you do know you have not provided him food, if it is true you do not have the capacity to provide the food, allow him to cry to sleep. That gives him more succor. But I don't see any reason why Nigeria should have a presidency keeping mute in the midst of all of this. If people are saying the cost of petrol has gone high because we've removed subsidy, is it true? Yes, it's true. What is the gain you had told us to see when you do that? We haven't seen. Can you address us on that? Maybe there are more difficult things that you have faced or confronted that we do not know. Can we be part of it? Tell us. After all, you are our president. Whether I elected you or I didn't, now the time has gone. You are now governing. Tell me what challenges you are going through and what steps you have taken that you will cushion this effect. We have talked about the issue of tariffs of light. For God's sakes. University of Jos is paying over 80 million monthly. How much is the university? Is the university generating money? And government is not funding it. As we speak, if you go to the university largely throughout the week, now that schools are not in regular session, you will not see light. Administrative staff, almost every office is running generator. Is that the kind of institutions we should be having? A federal institution? And now they are debating at the National Assembly to remove public institutions, particularly public tertiary institutions, from Band A. Are they the only people to be affected? Don't we have the private entities also who in themselves are augmenting the insufficiencies of government?
So there's actually need for the government
There is
to engage.
actually need for government to engage critical stakeholders.
So what's your advice
and
now
begin
to
to
the
revert,
protesters?
begin to reverse back to some of the things they know they have caused by themselves. If I am supposed to remove the fuel subsidy and I know the impact it will have on you, I should not remove it yet. I should begin to present some alternatives to cushion the effect before removing it. Let me give you an example with road construction. You want to block a major highway, and then you want to block a major highway for reconstruction. What do? You create alternative routes that will lessen the traffic. And then you have eased the difficulty of, but imagine you've blocked the road. They are now looking for who does that.
Our time is actually fast spent, but I would just
please.
like you to advise the protesters who tomorrow
I would
will be
advise
going
protesters to remain peaceful. Those who have shown signs of violence should sheath their swords. We are not out to fight government. We are out to pass a message. Now we have been pained. We are suffering. And the government needs to address this as a matter of urgency. In fact, it's late already, but they can start. We will be patient. We have already been patient. Nigerians are the worldwide. In fact, we have in statistics that we are the best people who can still go suffering, and yet we are still keeping ourselves happy.
Indeed.
So
Peaceful
we should
protest.
not be, that should not be a crime for us that we know how to be happy in the midst of our suffering. It should be a plus. So government should appreciate us for being this much peaceful and this much happy, even though we are suffering. So protesters should be peaceful. The coordinators of all the protest outfits, I mean, everywhere there is a convergence of those protesters, they should ensure that we pass our message peacefully and watch what government gets to do.
Thank you so much, Barrister Panmak Lere, for the great analysis on National Talk. Really appreciate you for your perspective.
Thank you.
And to our viewers out there, it's needful that if you decide to take a part of protest, ensure that it is peaceful, and any form of violence is highly condemnable. And to our leaders out there, do know that leadership is about protecting the interests of the people and not the interests of few. Democracy is the theory that the common people know what they want and deserve to get it real good and hard. Until we come your way next week with another package of National Talk, you stay blessed.